Anita, how's your mental health?
Questionable at all times. You know this.
Yeah, how's the mental health of your children?
Also a little bit tricky. Can I tell you my experience in trying to find therapists for myself and my kids, Mel?
Yes, please.
Okay, this is how it goes. You ask around your friends and your family for a referral for somebody who's nearby. You finally find somebody who sounds like they might work for your family. You give them a call and you find out that A, they're not accepting new patients, or B, they have a huge wait list. So you start over again and you ask people if they know anybody who would be a good therapist and a good fit. Finally, you find one, you go and you meet with them and you figure out that you don't actually like them that much. But it's been so much work to find somebody who you can go to in your area that you're kind of stuck with them. Well, do you have any ideas for how to get around this?
I do, because guess what? I've actually had some therapists that I have found on my own, which involves what you're saying. Sometimes I remember one time I was like 3 hours in the bathtub on my phone looking
Yeah.
through websites. I was such a prune at the end. But I have also had the experience with working with BetterHelp. And it was like, I don't want to say too good to be true, but because it is true, but it's like amazing because I was matched with my therapist within 24 hours.
And you didn't have to go through all of that other ridiculous process of trying to find somebody. And here's the cool thing too, is if that person didn't work out for you, you can just switch and say, and it's not like you're committing to another years long search for somebody who you're going to jive with.
It's true. And I lucked out, or maybe just BetterHelp is really good at matching people together because I never had to change my therapist. I loved her. Perfect fit for me. And I know that some of our friends have used BetterHelp and they've had to change therapists, and boom, same day, you can change.
Easy peasy.
You can ghost your therapist. Get a new one.
I love this idea. BetterHelp is one of our sponsors. If you use our promo code trybetterhelp.com/WWDN, you get 10% off your first month. And we totally recommend it.
Yes, get some therapy. That's trybetterhelp.com/WWDN. And a 3.
And a 2 and a 1, 1, 1. You guys, we've been waiting for this day for quite a while. Many of you have been waiting since we posted about it in Facebook on our widow. Oh my gosh, Mel, I'm having
It's okay. I can help because I also am having problems with my brain.
Okay.
Here's what Anita's trying to say.
Oh my
Hopefully I
gosh.
can say it. We posted in the Widow Wives Club a while back about crazy in-law stories. We have received your submissions, and now the day has come for us to read them.
I'm super excited about these. Now, here's the caveat to this. So many of us have really wonderful in-laws. So many of us have pretty neutral in-laws. And then there is a subset of us that have really crazy or weird or inappropriate in-laws. And the hard thing is when you've lost your person, your partner, is that you don't have that buffer. You don't have that person who you can be like, your mom is crazy. Like, you take care of her. And so we have to lean on each other in these situations because we've lost the person who we can talk to about this. So some people might think that we focus so much on like the bad in-law stories or the crazy ones, but the people who have good in-laws, they don't need any support. They don't need to feel seen. They can just like be happy with their nice, friendly, supportive in-laws.
They're probably also hiding because they're like, I have really great in-laws, and so maybe I don't fit in. So, you know what? Everyone has different experiences. Some people suck. Some people are awesome. A lot of people are just in the middle.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, this episode is dedicated to our friend Liz from Down Under, who I think very much deserves an award for what she's been through. When we told people that we were receiving submissions about this, we solemnly swore to keep names anonymous. Some people said they didn't care. So if we mention a name here or there, just know that it was with their permission. For most others, we just are going to keep it on the down low, just in case you may have a homicidal in-law that listens to a widow podcast, which why?
Yeah, why? But that would track with some of the things that are in these stories, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Would you like to do the honors, Anita? Do you want to go first?
Let's do it. Let's get right to it.
Okay.
This one I loved because it was called Crazy Pants Sister-in-Law.
Sounds like something you would write, but it's not you.
It's not. Oof. Going forward with a bang. My story about my crazy pants sister-in-law, less than 1 year after my husband died of COVID, just weeks shy of the first vaccines coming out, my husband's brother's wife, take a second to think that through, decides to write a Christmas letter all about her COVID. Wraparound COVID is what she called it. What's that? And all about her. As if this wasn't enough, she goes on to say that not everyone was so lucky enough to be able to follow the ivermectin and vitamin regimen. For instance, Dwight's brother. Okay. Was I supposed to be happy about that dismissive comment? My husband was anxiously waiting for the first vaccines, and she got ivermectin from a vet. Anyway, after this long, boring, narcissistic letter about her illness, she goes on to say that her dog died, and it was the hardest thing she's ever had to go through. Always nice to hear that losing her dog was more traumatic than the very recent loss of her brother-in-law. Crazy pants! Guys,
Tone
COVID.
deaf. Tone deaf.
And COVID made people nuts. Like they said weird things and they did weird things and it was a mess and it might still be. So sorry
You know
about
what?
that.
I think that we also notice everybody's insane right now, like truly, with like students who their entire school experience was in front of a screen, and then now they're trying to like get back into, who even knows, into regular society. And you know what's interesting though? There's this strange book. Sorry. Okay. Also, yes, I agree. Definitely crazy pants lady. So sorry about that. Lame. There's this book that I have, and I don't know how to explain why I have it, but it's a friend's neighbor from like the 80s who wrote a book about herself and her life history, had it bound, and as an old lady, passed it out to the children in the neighborhood. Clearly a narcissist,
Yes.
whatever. It's really entertaining to me.
I'm doing that.
But guess what was in it? The flu epidemic of 1918.
Oh.
And it was interesting to read because she was saying how when each of her siblings got it back in the day, how it affected each one. And she said one of her brothers like got up and ran around outside up over a grassy knoll with no clothes on and like went insane.
Okay. He just wanted to do that anyway. And the flu just made it so like it took away his inhibitions.
Okay. However, it was in Wyoming in February.
That's too cold.
So I think everyone is kind of insane. So not to take away from Crazy Pants Sister, because yes, absolutely. And also that's really great to compare your grief. So whatever. Thank you. Thank you for your submission. Here is our next one. My in-laws are great for the most part. Yay! And my mother-in-law has been one of my biggest supporters since I started dating her son. He died young at 38 years old, and we have both been just grief-stricken. He was one of her best friends, and they talked often. The first visit out to the house after he died, we were alone one night, and she told me, I am so glad I'm this old and only have to be heartbroken for a short time. You have the rest of your life to think about his death. Not exactly comforting.
That's actually really funny. Because she thought she was being helpful. Like, oh, honey, don't worry. You have your whole life to think about him being dead, and I'll be dead anyway. That's funny. Mel's just shaking her head. All right, let's go on to the next one. All right. I don't even know where to start with my stories about my in-laws since there are so many. Oh, hooray for you. I guess I can start by telling you what my mother-in-law said when my husband was diagnosed with kidney disease a couple of months after we got engaged. His mother pulled me aside and said, you know you don't have to go through with this. You're not married yet. You can leave him and I can take care of him. Ah!
What?
That was just the tip of the iceberg. My husband ended up passing due to COVID, but his illness and complications from kidney disease were a large contributing factor. A little backstory. My husband had a complicated relationship with his family and his parents in particular. He suffered from mental and physical abuse as a child and really tried to work on himself as an adult. That meant for him severing his relationship with his mother for his own sanity during his illness. The disappointing thing was that this also caused a split from his sister and her 2 kids 2 years prior to his passing, and they look so much like him. Oh, that's hard. My husband did not have life insurance or a will, nor even a plan for what to do when he passed, so I was left to decide and pay for everything on my not so large one-person income. My in-laws, who are both retired CFOs of large companies, did not even offer to pay for the funeral. His sister offered to pay something, but she said she could not give me the money right away. My sister-in-law and brother-in-law are in special education teacher and a high school principal and make a great living, probably over $200,000 a year. Teachers in New York have a great union and get paid very well. They have enough to go to Hawaii and Portugal every year, yet she could not come up with any money to give me for the funeral, not even a credit card. So I had to pay for everything using credit cards until my husband's estate went through probate. I learned shortly after my husband's death that he never changed me as a beneficiary for the death benefit of his union, but had his sister.
No!
I don't want to continue.
Okay,
I want
I'll
to
go.
be done.
Would you like me to continue?
Go ahead.
Okay, she like really cannot continue.
I know what's going to happen.
I believe the payout could be as much as $8,000, almost half of the funeral costs. I could have used that for the funeral. I told his sister and said I would speak to the union to get her the payout, and she said she would give the money to me for his funeral. Many months passed after the funeral, and I did not hear from her about the payout of the death benefits. One of our dogs got cancer 6 months after my husband's passing. I asked his sister if the money had come in so I could clear some of my credit card debt to pay for my dog's growing medical expenses. She said she received the benefits and had spent all of it, but $1,500 on her son's surgery for his broken arm, a surgery that was scheduled prior to my husband's death, and gave the rest to her mom to help her with the internment cost. See below about that debacle. Stay tuned, everyone.
Oh, gosh.
I was devastated. They both made enough money to cover such costs. How could they use the death benefit money she promised would go to funeral costs I put on my credit cards? My dog died shortly after because her cancer was untreatable. Luckily, something I learned after spending over $5,000 on her medical bills and medicines. Luckily, my husband was in the local 3 IBEW electrical union and left me his pensions and annuity that kicked in right away without probate. I have been using that to pay our bills and costs slowly. My husband, before he died, was convinced his mother was a narcissist, and I'm pretty sure he was right. Maybe his sister too. The day of my husband's funeral, my mother-in-law told me that my husband's cousin was, quote, promised something if he ever passed. I can't recall what that something was because widow brain, but I thought bringing that up on the day of the funeral was uncalled for. Then she proceeded to ask for his Rolex, a Rolex she bought for him and gave to him as a teenager. I know she didn't want it for sentimental reasons, but because it was valuable, and she thought she could have it back because she gave it to him. She asked for other things as well, but I just ignored her request, saying I was not ready to go through his stuff, which at the time was true. Okay. Can you go next? We're going to tag team this one.
Okay. The worst thing, well, first of all, okay, that's all I have to say about that. The worst thing was deciding what to do with my husband's ashes. I didn't know much about what my husband wanted after his death, but I did know that he wanted to be cremated. I don't think his Catholic mother liked this idea. Out of guilt, I gave my husband a Catholic funeral and a visitation so his family could see him one last time. I'm not sure that is what he would want or I wanted, but I thought it would appease his family, especially his mother. The last thing I wanted for his mother was to make a scene. His mother asked if she could have some ashes to intern them in a cemetery, and she would pay those costs only. I said that would be fine, but did not realize how much of the ashes she was expecting. So she was paying for the interment of her portion of the ashes. That was the debacle referenced, I think. She asked to go with me to pick up my husband's ashes. I said yes, again, mostly out of guilt, and my mother also came along. When they gave me his ashes, she asked how much I wanted. I said I expected to have most of them and wanted to give her only some to be interned. She went berserk in front of the head of the mortuary, and my mother saying, I have to have all his ashes to be interned, but I can give you a little to keep. I was shocked and upset, but I did not want to make a scene in the mortuary. I had to actually start negotiating with her about how much ashes she could have, finally offering her as much as half. She said she could not bear to split him up and have half of him God knows where.
Oh.
Did I do a good dramatic impression, Mel?
I love that.
At this time, the head of the mortuary was even getting annoyed at her and said that as his wife, The ashes were mine, and that I had the right to do with them however I pleased by law. She made a fuss. I'm sure that went over well. She made a fuss and cried hysterically, saying if she couldn't have him all, then she didn't want any. By this time,
Wow.
I was in tears and my mother was furious. Finally, I relented to giving most of the ashes to my mother-in-law and only kept a small portion. She wouldn't even let me hold on to the ashes until he was interned, almost a month later. She wanted to have them with her in her house until he was laid to rest. All I could think of was fine. He probably will haunt her while she had him anyway. LOL. After the funeral in October of 2022, I didn't hear from his family for Halloween, Thanksgiving, and finally Christmas was coming, and I was going to be all alone because all of my family live in Texas, and I don't have enough vacation to go home since I used all my days to be at home after my husband passed. I called his family and invited myself to their Christmas dinner. That was one of the last times I heard from them. I haven't had a call from them since, and it's been over a year, not even on his birthday. Needless to say, I am very sad I don't have a relationship with them since they are one of my last living connections to him. It is especially sad because my mother-in-law lives in walking distance to my house and his sister a short 10 to 15-minute drive away. I wish I had a relationship, especially with my nephews, but we didn't have one when my husband was alive, so I guess I shouldn't expect to have a relationship after he passed. They have truly severed ties with me. I am sure the only time I will hear from them again is as soon as they want something from me that belonged to him. Whoa.
Barf.
There's a lot in there, you guys.
Guys, why? What is wrong with humanity?
So weird.
I don't even know what to say. Because, first of all, I want to talk to the head of the mortuary because I feel like that guy has the best stories
Oh, probably.
of people going crazy.
Sometimes we assume that unless we had a huge life insurance payout, we don't really need to know anything about investments or even finances. But guess what? A little knowledge of finances is critical for all of us. Maybe your partner was in charge of that stuff, and now you find yourself making all the decisions. Maybe you're mad about that. Maybe I am. Nicole from the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast is here to help. She tackles financial literacy by telling the stories of women and widows and finance experts and shares the lessons they've learned as certified financial planners. Whether you know a lot and feel confident in your financial decisions or feel unsure about all of that stuff, there is more to learn. Listen and subscribe to the He's Gone But the Money's Not podcast on all podcast platforms. This ad was paid for by Rockhouse Financial, an SEC registered investment advisor. We should talk to them. They probably won't tell us any of their stories, but I bet in their like break rooms, they have all the great stories of all the crazy
We
people.
could do like a hidden mic,
Oh,
something like that.
yes.
Would be fun.
I'm so sorry that you had to deal with that, and I'm also sorry that you've lost connection to the, like to your
To the
husband.
connection.
Yeah. Even though you don't want to be connected to idiots, but it's still hard to lose like the last vestiges of your person. So, Okay, Mel. On to the next.
All right. When my daughter was about 10 or 11, she would spend time with my sister-in-law, who was married and was expecting her second child. She worked as an adjunct professor and taught a class in the evenings, so her husband was home. My father-in-law told my daughter that she could not stay with her uncle because he was not important. He was not family. She had to stay with them that afternoon when she came home and asked me if I wasn't family or important since I wasn't blood family. Needless to say, my daughter does not have a good relationship with them. When my husband died, my sister-in-law said that they were no longer a family of 5, but now a family of 4. When my husband died, we had become a family of 15. My husband had 2 siblings that had spouses and 2 kids each, and us. But what mattered to my in-laws was only blood. When he died, they came over to our home, and my father-in-law said a few things, like his son had worked very hard, and I had to be careful what I did with his money.
Screw you!
And no one could understand his grief since it was his son who died.
Grief Olympics, right
Woo!
there. So fun.
I used to make Shutterfly books as gifts for Christmas, a year in review of what we had done. One Christmas, my mother-in-law opened hers, tossed it aside, and said, "What am I going to do with another album?"
Oh!
Wow.
Do you know how hard it is to make those stupid Shutterfly books? It's a lot of effort. It's
It
so
is.
rude.
It is.
I can't
Also,
believe it.
what's wrong with people opening a gift and just always the default, even if you hate it, just lie. Just
Oh,
say thank you so much.
I've been trying to teach some of my kids that those are inside thoughts. We keep them inside. We don't spew them out. Oh my goodness. But he's also a child. And this woman, I think, is full grown. The other thing that's so hard is the whole idea that like the blood part of the situation, like their family, it only counted if they were related by blood. Like that's so hard and so stupid because what it just is. Doesn't make any
You
sense.
know what? If you guys lived in Utah, I'm sure that you guys were all ninth cousins. So how would she use that excuse? That's all I have to
Third,
say about that.
third cousins, Mel. All right. Hello, ladies. Can't wait to hear who is worse. So we're doing a competition now. My sister-in-law told me the very next day after her brother died, my husband of 29 years plus the 7 years dating, okay, so that's like 36 years, when I went to tell her information on funeral and autopsy information, that, quote, we no longer have a tie and I am no longer family. Speaking of blood relationships, I
Mm.
said, oh, okay, so my children don't have his blood? She continued and said she'll be moving in a 3 to 6 month period. She rents a house next door from us. It's been 3 years, and where is she going to go? She only pays $200 a month in Southern California. I have her for life.
Oh.
Oh, oh, oh.
I like the comment about the children
Yeah,
not having his blood. Like, okay.
it's been watered down by her blood. When I was updating my trust, I wanted to remove her, but I'm not mean and I just can't because it was on my husband's request. My husband and I agreed to keep her on as our tenant if either of us die. Why did you guys do that?
Yeah, I have a question. Like, is there something like, does she have a disability? Is there some reason?
Yeah.
I'm serious. Because if she is not on like having a disabled situation,
Bye bye.
bye.
Okay. She called the attorney to ask if she was a beneficiary. She thought her brother left her a house. What?
Ah,
Woman lives next door. Never did she ever invite us to her parties. We did, and she wouldn't come. My brother, my husband, was good to her, but she didn't ever like me, so he got the same treatment. He didn't want to leave anything to her because she would not care for it. The latest, after 3 years, she's saying that my husband had an
yes.
illegitimate child in another country. What?
Yes, this is amazing. Okay. Clearly, this woman is unwell.
Yeah. I keep her on so she can continue paying the mortgage on that house she is renting until one of my kids needs a home. Aha. See, yes, I love it. She's not.
Wow.
That's
Okay,
wild.
I just would like to say also, here's my argument for writing the person out of the trust. Ahem. Ready?
Yes.
If you're saying you're not blood relatives and that's a big important thing, then get her out of the trust. The end. Play by
Judge
her rules.
Judge Mel has spoken.
Judge Mel, yes.
Gavel. Kunk, kunk, kunk.
Wow. All right, well, good
This
luck
is
with that
crazy.
one. Okay. Here's the next one. My husband's two sisters had a huge blowout via text when he was telling him the cancer was back. I was stuck navigating all the sharing of information and details as time went on and his condition worsened.
Like she didn't have anything better to do than manage that.
Jeez. They didn't even speak at the funeral home and stayed on opposite sides of the room the entire time. That's so amazing. It was ridiculous and childish. But wait, there's more. My husband had a decent sized gun collection, but I didn't really know what was what. When we were dealing with that relapse, he was hurriedly trying to sell, and don't worry everyone, legally and with proper transfer paperwork, as many as he could, but time ran out, as did his ability to move without help. So the room where he kept the guns was in a bit of disarray. I kept that door closed, so I don't really know what a mess it was. One of his sisters, along with her two sons and her boyfriend, stayed with me in the days leading up to and after the funeral. At dinner one night, I asked the boyfriend and the nephews to go up and take a look at his clothing and take anything that would help them remember him. He had a ton of great clothes that reflected his unique sense of humor and style. Unbeknownst to me, Some of the guns, which were unloaded and with the safety features engaged, were kind of out in the open. The nephews alerted me and put them in a safer place. A week or two later, I had my husband's two close friends come over to help me inventory the firearms so that I could take them to a gun dealer to sell them. Fortunately, they were more familiar with this collection than I was. When they found a gun case without the accompanying firearm, I made a few calls and quickly found out that the sister's boyfriend had helped
What?
himself to my husband's concealed carry handgun. The sister made the boyfriend get on the phone to apologize to me, and his shoddy excuse was, I knew that was the gun he carried for protection when you guys went out, and I thought he would want me to have something to protect his sister.
That is the most amazing excuse I've ever heard.
That's
Oh,
gloriously horrific. I like the sentence in the next sentence because it goes along with this. It says, roll your eyes as close to 360 degrees as you can without passing out, because that was me on the phone that night too. One of the nephews works at a gun shop, so he arranged to have the weapon sent back up here to a gun shop. They bought it from me, so fortunately it turned out well. But when they were making plans to come up here for Christmas, oddly enough, they didn't ask if they could stay with me.
That's wild, man.
Woo!
I love it, and I hate it. Thank you for sharing. My mother-in-law and I have always had a rocky relationship. We had no communication for almost 4 years and just started talking a month or so before he died. James decided it would be cool to die suddenly at 2 a.m. on a Sunday morning. Rude, but okay. Well, the first time I saw my mother-in-law post-death, she immediately hugged me and told me, it's okay. You'll find another. You'll move on. It was like she was giving me permission to, quote, move on while telling me her grief is worse than mine. It still makes me mad almost 3 years later. P.S. Thank you both for the podcast and what you do. Words will never express how the podcast and Facebook group have helped. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much.
So glad that it helps because this stuff is hard.
You have a crazy mother-in-law.
And I'm sorry that like your balloon got popped, right? Because you can get another. That's the same thing that happened to me, but I mean, it wasn't my mother-in-law. But that comment that people make, you'll find another. It's okay. You'll be fine. It's like those haunt you. And that was just said to me by an acquaintance or, a neighbor or whatever. Albeit it was before Scott was buried. But my mother-in-law saying that is like next level. I am so sorry on your behalf. Also, welcome. You are one of us. And we're sorry and also glad to know you. Here's the next one. My mother-in-law has been one of my best friends for years.
Oh.
Great. We hadn't been in touch as much over the last few years as my husband, her son, talked to her every day on his way home from work.
Holy cow.
I would get the updates through him. That's kind of how Scott was too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We'd have family dinners at least once a month or so, regardless. After my husband died, she very much dragged me through the grief Olympics. She honestly didn't do anything to deliberately hurt me, but there were plenty of times it really hurt. For example, when my husband's cousin, who I've always stayed in touch with, came to town, my mother-in-law took her children, and my brother-in-law to see the plaque in the ground at the park outside my husband's office. She didn't even invite me. I might not have even known for a bit, except she sent me a picture of all of them smiling next to the plaque.
That's weird.
The cousin was so confused as to why I wasn't there, as she wanted to see me too. This was her first time seeing any of us since he had died. I did call her out on this, and she was shocked I was upset. Okay, that kind of happened to me too in a different way, and it was like devastating to me, and I had to cancel a whole trip over it because I was too fresh in grief. So I relate with your upsetedness.
I think it's strange that, I don't know, she didn't invite her, but then she sent her a picture, almost like, nah, but it probably wasn't meant to be that way, but that's how it felt, I'm sure.
I don't even know what goes through everyone's brains and experiences. Ugh. Here's the same continuation. Here we go. Another
contestant.
Time.
It's the same contestant.
Same contestant, yes. Another time, the same cousin was visiting. This time I was invited. And the cousin asked what things were helping me through some of the grief. I, of course, mentioned, what do we do now first? Thank you. You're so nice. Next thing I know, my mother-in-law pipes in with, well, where I live in a 55-plus high-rise, the husbands are dropping like flies, implying that it wasn't as big of a deal. But when a child dies, well, My ears perk right up.
Oh, I imagine her saying
Interesting.
like, but when a child dies, my ears perk right up.
I, I just want to I know we still have more on this one, but can we please just shout out to loss that occurs not in the order that most people's life things happen? That's the deal, guys. All
Yeah.
of it's hard, but out of order is extra hard. Please refer to the Holmes Rahe life scale, stress index, whatever. Okay,
I
anyway,
mean, okay, I just want to say this to add to it. Of course, it's hard to lose a child, and that's also out of order. But where we get into weird territory is when we start comparing the two and being like, well, husbands are meant to die and children are not meant to die. Like, don't do that. That's just, it doesn't make any sense. Just stop comparing. The end. Okay, go.
okay. We all know she can say insensitive things, so I bit my tongue on this one, despite how despicable it was. I was just so tired of competing in the Grief Olympics at all at that point. We are okay now. She knows she has hurt me and that I pulled back. She sends me cards a lot and texts me often to let me know how much she is thinking of me and loves me. I know she was hurting too, and now that we are further out, it's been better. I do love her and always have. I know my husband wants me to stay in touch too, so I think I kept it up early on out of guilt, knowing he would want that. I'm glad I did, even after all the games.
Holy cow.
You're a survivor. Good. You know what, though? This one, even though it's like, I'm glad that there was an opportunity for some sort of repair because some of these, it's like they just go out kamikaze style, right? And
Yeah,
it's like cut off. So this story is helpful to know that for some people, there might be a little resolution and maybe some feelings that had been hurt can be remedied. But that stuff's so hard, man, especially when
yeah,
you're going through like the initial parts of fresh grief and all that. There's stuff that I'm like, I don't think I can be close to this
that
person, this
person.
person, this
Yeah.
person ever again because of that. And it's like, could I put effort toward maybe repairing it? I don't know. Do I have energy for it? Absolutely not. So, am
And
I a jerk?
why?
Probably, but I'm tired.
Yeah, and
So,
also this acknowledges that sometimes, especially in early grief, we're more sensitive to things. Like things hit us really wrong, and she acknowledges that they're good friends and they're close, and so she was able to kind of brush some of that aside, but realize that like it hurts. But maybe there is some point in time where you can see their point of view and kind of like forgive them a little bit, maybe. I don't know, but
yeah,
I like that it kind of this seems like a very big person, you know? Good job.
maybe you should say mature.
A big This is a mature person. That sounds like I'm saying old though, Mel.
This is a very wise
Wise,
person.
not big or old, but wise.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go on to the next. So hubby and his parents were estranged, although they still kept at least a little bit in touch, as did me and mother-in-law. Kind of an on and off again thing. I hadn't spoken to my mother-in-law in years when hubby had his heart attack. So bad, I had to Google and hope for a home number to pop up. Oh, like that's wild. I told her what happened, that he had coded 2 times and for how long each time. She was a nurse. She knew better than me what it all meant. And I knew the moment he would never wake up after the first code. It was so bad. It was not easy to get someone in very critical condition from a deployed location to the States. There were multiple countries involved and took close to a month. Oh, man. She knew he was going to Walter Reed. She knew when I arrived, I was going to have to make a decision. She lived an hour away from Walter Reed. She knew the decision for our she knew the decision our family made. They could not make the drive an hour to Walter Reed. No reason, no excuse, just nada. She gave me a semi reason why she couldn't travel for funeral. It's been 2 months since he passed. I've contacted her a couple of times via text. I haven't heard a peep from her. Wow.
Hmm.
So she just didn't come like an hour to come support or to see her son. That's crazy.
Yikes. I'm really sorry. Most of these I just want to like my mouth is just hanging open and I don't even know what to say.
Oh boy.
All right. Next. Okay. Now we have gotten permission to use names because it's Liz and we love Liz and Liz does not care. Okay. Hello, you amazing ladies. Let me detail some of the in law antics. Seriously, I do not care if I get names if names get mentioned. Love to you both and all from Liz. All right, here we go. When discussing the funeral, they kept mentioning how Pete's family needed to do particular things and how Pete's family needed time with him after the funeral. When asked if that included me and the kids, the response was, "You're not his family. We are. You're just a branch of it." They demanded they be the first car following the hearse as they were his family first. His 4 children and wife should follow them.
The people he created should follow the others. Got it.
Okay. At the funeral, all of my husband's family left to go sit with the casket, literally leaving me and the kids standing at the door of the wake, with 500 funeral attendees who then kept asking me where to be able to pay their respects. When they turned an hour and a half later, they declared no one spoke to them. Most people who tried to find them had left by then. It was also somehow my fault they didn't know people, and they didn't feel like they were hosted properly as the grieving parents. It was my job to host them at the funeral, apparently.
Can you believe how rude Pete was to meet people and have friends after he moved out of his parents' house? Can't believe it. The nerve.
Let's infantilize this grown man that has started a family and had children of his own. Also, anyone that's ever even been part of running any sort of event, including funerals, it's impossible. You cannot do everything. There's a reason why people have staff and teams, aka family members and other people besides Liz. Although maybe Liz is just so amazing that she could just do a one-person job, right?
I think maybe that's true, but also not.
Yeah. When they couldn't get the viewing time, when and how they wanted it, they rang the funeral home. And when they told they were not next of kin, so details wouldn't be discussed with them, they exclaimed, "We are paying for it, so we will get what we want." And threatened to force me to do things to the point the funeral director offered to attend my home and stop them at the pass. Yes, funeral director! Let's talk to that one, too. Oh, man. Okay, guys, this is the best. This is the best thing of all the things I've learned so far. The funeral home now uses their behavior around the funeral as the worst case of in-laws at funeral director conferences.
Oh,
these are the people that they make jokes about. I love it. And I hate that for you, Liz, but here we are. They left town after the funeral without saying goodbye to the children, but promised to return 3 weeks later when one of the kids had a birthday. They never appeared. Instead, they went on holiday to the beach because they weren't coping. It's been 5 years, and they have never been back.
Wow.
They wrote me a letter on my wedding anniversary explaining how they were grieving as much, if not more than me, because he was their flesh and blood, and they had had him for 46 years, and I'd only had him for 20. Yeah, pretty sure you guys didn't sleep in the same bed and make children with them. But anyway, I digress.
Barf.
The letter also detailed all the ways in which I had let them down and how I should have been more accommodating of their inability to ring or visit. It's really hard to call somebody. Really hard. And even harder to text somebody. That's really hard. So hard.
I get it. I'm with them. I'm on the in-laws side on this one, 100%.
Or visit because they were not coping, and explaining why I needed to do more to help them, irrespective of the fact I was working 5 days a week and had 4 children ages 6 through 12.
Oh
and the in-laws are both retired. They're busy, Liz. I mean, I don't know what's wrong with you, Liz, here. Clearly they have a kangaroo farm. They have baby joeys that are also probably their blood relatives. So sorry that you're not important. The only time in 5 years we have seen them, his mother explained how, as she has had special status as a grandmother and a grieving mother, double duty. Therefore, it was their children's responsibility and mine to ring her to see how she was doing, rather than her ring the children. Okay, so not be a grandma.
Right.
Not be an adult in a child's life.
I know, that's the crazy thing is you're these are children, and no children should be expected to support an adult emotionally. They don't have the capacity, and they're really bad at it. So look elsewhere, ma'am.
Yes. On the first Christmas, they didn't ring the kids and instead waited until we rang them after lunchtime. then explained to the kids how they hadn't done anything all Christmas morning. Then the kids then they asked the kids if they were missing their dad at Christmas. They don't ring the kids for their birthdays. After the first 6 months, they don't acknowledge any birthdays with a card in the mail. When they did ring the kids in the first year, they rang from a location 15 hours away from their home while on holidays and complained to the kids that they never see them because they live so far away, 7 hours. Thanks, Liz. Sorry.
It's so
Liz,
fabulous. All of it.
I think you should compile some more, Liz, and just come on as a special guest and just keep reading them. Keep reading
Put them
them.
on blast.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Hello. I know it isn't a competition, but if this happened to be a competition, I think I'd at least qualify for the final round. We could do like a voting system when we get done with this.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
First, let me preface this with I found out after my husband died that he really sucked in a lot of ways. My husband was not close with his family. When I say not close, I mean he hadn't seen his mom during the decade we were together. Even when we were in the state where she and his sister lived, he said no when I suggested he visit. He had seen his sister twice, both times being super not great visits, where he ended up leaving the vacations without warning and way early. I met his dad a handful of times. The last time was approximately 7 months before my husband died. My husband deserved family who loved him and chose him, but he often wondered if his dad even liked him. Anyways, my husband died suddenly and unexpectedly. Traumatically, if you were me, I couldn't get into my husband's phone. Cheater changed his passcode, clearly not expecting his death, and I didn't have any of his family's contact information. My husband was not perfect, but his family obviously deserved to know, and I didn't realize why the passcode was changed at the time.
Okay, so it's clearly he is cheating,
Oh,
right? Infidelity affair situation. Is that what's happening?
I think so.
Oh,
I
okay,
reached
keep
out to
going.
his family everywhere. His sister kept ignoring my Instagram and Facebook calls. His dad didn't respond to any of my social media or LinkedIn messages. This is hard work. This is like private detective situation. His mom, his stepmom, his stepsisters all ignored me. After a few days of me spamming his family, his mom called his phone to get me to stop messaging them. You would think that common sense would say, I'm only messaging because I have to, but whatever. I had to give his family my phone number and tell everyone again and again. His sister was furious that I didn't tell them sooner, and I kept saying things like, I didn't even know you were still in the picture. Ma'am,
What?
I had to hear him vent about you almost every single day, so sadly, I knew you were in the picture. She asked what funeral home I was using. I didn't know why, but I told her. She then asked for the death certificate, which I explained I didn't have. My friends my friends created a GoFundMe to afford the cremation, and we closed it as soon as we reached the $3,000. This is important. It's in bold, it's in capital letters, everybody. His sister then texted me saying his dad would cover the cost of the cremation and not to worry about it. His dad, one of his stepsisters, I can't even tell you which one because they never told me, and his stepmom flew up and met me at the funeral home. I did try to pay, but his dad would not let me. My hand was trembling, but I was holding my card and did try to pay. I got an email from the funeral director asking for my marriage certificate. I didn't think anything of it, so I sent it over. He let me know that my husband's sister was demanding proof that we were married. What? He was very kind and really advocated for me. Robert's dad insisted on a viewing. I didn't think Robert would want this, but I felt like I couldn't say no. We scheduled it for 2 days later, as late as we could. This was so Robert's sister and his mother could get there. Robert's dad texted me saying the viewing had been moved 2 hours. I knew that didn't sound right, so I called the funeral home. Sure enough, he lied to me. No way. The viewing
What?
was at the original time, and his dad was trying to bully the funeral director into pushing it back. This was during a freaking ice storm and the day before Christmas Eve, so they were already clearly moving mountains for
Oh
us.
my
I sat there,
gosh.
not recognizing my husband, for an hour and got ready to leave. His sister and mother finally arrived. It was obviously awkward meeting them, but I didn't think it could get worse. I left and they refused to leave the room. The funeral director explained multiple times that his staff needed to get home before the roads got worse. He contacted me asking me how to communicate with them, and I had to admit they were finding out why Robert didn't have a relationship with them. Good luck, guys. I don't know.
Oh,
His family then started demanding access to our apartment. They wanted his things. Again, he had no relationship with them, but I was fragile and didn't understand how to say no. You can't say no. They took so many things, most of which weren't even Robert's. They took art off my walls, including art that friends had painted for me. His sister took a stuffed animal that an ex-boyfriend had given me. noting that Robert loved it as a kid.
Nice.
I don't think he loved a stuffed animal ever. I got it in 20 I got it in 2007 from an ex, but that's okay. They took coffee mugs, shirts of mine, and other things. How do you say no to that? His sister kept asking if he was sick, and I said, other than the seizures and all of the appointments, he seemed fine. She then got super angry that she didn't know about his seizures and said they needed better information. Oh, again, she then got super angry that she didn't know about his seizures and said they needed to be better informed. Again, not my place. They were not seizures. I didn't know that until the medical examiner called me. That's an asterisk. They then asked to meet our new dog. We love our dog. She's an amazing girl. However, she is terrified of new people. She does not do well with strangers. I said that multiple times. They kept saying that they needed to meet her. I explained that it wouldn't go well and that since it was dark, Lyra, what do you think?
Mm, Lyra? I
Lyra,
don't
Lyra,
know.
Lyra/Lyra would be anxious. The dog. They still said they wanted to meet her. This is where I failed my dog. I'm naturally a people pleaser who gets steamrolled, but this was the worst. I asked for them to stay far away and not to come too close. I asked them not to make noise or acknowledge her. I got her out of the car and tried comforting her, but she was not having it. She was growling. I kind of hope she bites them.
Me
And my
too.
husband's mom thought it would still be fine to go up to her. She started barking, so I shoved her in the car and said she had been through enough. They took their things and left, and as I sat in my ransacked apartment alone with my dog, I thought this was the end of it. It was not.
No.
Robert's aunt had been given my number for some reason, and she kept texting, asking me for our dog. One, what? Like, what? Why would you ask for my dog? I was the only one who chose her. I was the one who chose her. I was the one who named her. I was the one who made all of her appointments. She was my dog. Meanwhile, his family couldn't even respect her space while she was growling and barking. What?
I don't understand these people. Like, this is beyond even, I don't get it. What's
Like,
happening?
would you call a mom and be like, "That's his child, so I want the child"?
Also, you weren't married. I don't understand any of this. Wait, what?
I know Mel is
I'm very
having a
perplexed.
yeah. Robert's sister texted me a few times asking about Robert's health. I sent her some ashes and a lock of Robert's hair, as she was the only one who asked for anything. Robert's dad requested a copy of the death certificate, so I sent that as well. I didn't hear from them for almost a year. Things were back to normal, or at least how our relationship was prior to my husband dying. I quietly started dating again because I was dealing with complicated grief. Not only was my husband having a very public emotional affair, he had been sending her money that I had earned since he wasn't working.
No.
When I went to close his bank account, there should have been at least $7,000. There was $13 and some odd change.
Oh
It was
my
humiliating.
gosh.
I definitely started dating earlier than I should have, but the things I found out in the months after he died would have been separation if not divorce to me. Complicated grief is unexpectedly cruel, but I still deeply miss my husband. But quacking hell, what a horrible thing to do to me. So I started dating, not dating, spite swiping.
Yes.
That's a great term. But one guy stuck, so I wanted to get the first date out of the way. I went on one first date. One. That man and I celebrated our 6-month mark last week. Oh, I did
Hmm.
post a graphic about dating again on my Instagram grid when the time felt right with a little blurb about how I was in a relationship again and accepted my boyfriend's relationship request on Facebook. But I did not talk to anyone in his family about it because why would I? We didn't talk prior to Robert's dying, and we didn't talk after he died. I erroneously thought that Robert's death would bring us closer together, or at least maybe that they'd get to know who Robert was, but it did not. We weren't even friends on Facebook. On the 1 year mark, I posted a tribute to my husband. My husband ended up being a not kind person to me, but he was still the man I loved for a decade and still love in a very messy, complicated way that only a widow who finds out her husband sucked after he died can. I still cry over him being gone daily. I'm still angry at him, but my husband did not deserve to die, and I don't deserve the trauma of waking up to him dying and trying to revive him until the paramedics arrived. I checked on my phone a few hours later and saw that his sister had left a bunch of comments on my Instagram post about the 1 year mark. I honestly forgot she was following me. She went on and on about how I was a leech. What? About how I let Robert's dad pay for the cremation. Remember, that was important.
Hmm.
And about how I'm not this strong warrior that I portray. I wanted to be petty and post screenshots of me saying that I would pay, but deleting and blocking was better.
Good.
Also, I do not portray myself as a warrior. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm closer to a popsicle on the sidewalk on a hot LA day. I was so depressed after Robert died that I had to get my hair detangled by a professional. I've seen TikToks of that. It's fascinating. But that is not neither here nor there. I failed a class, ruining my 4.0 GPA. Dang it. I dropped out of college because I couldn't even go to class without having a panic attack. I got laid off 3 weeks after Robert died and truly did need that $3,000 to survive. I'm still trying to stay afloat with all of Robert's medical debt and other expenses, but his family clearly has no idea. I forgot that my relationship status was public, and his sister also commented there about how I'm not independent because I'm in a new relationship. Based on the stories Robert told me, that is a major projection. However, I just deleted and blocked. A few days later, my boyfriend texted me saying she messaged him on Facebook. Oh,
What?
good gravy. I know it was her because she said, I'm Rob's sister. Oh, good detective work. Robert hated when people called him Rob. She never stopped. My boyfriend didn't know any of that, so I know that she messaged him. He blocked her without reading the message. She also
Good.
messaged a few of my friends, the people who helped me when I would literally forget to feed myself for over a week. I bought a burner phone. Okay, this is like
Yes, true
becoming
crime.
CIA shit. I bought a burner phone, texted my husband's dad saying that I understand his family was hurting, explained that I would be sending a money order for $50 a month until he is paid back. Oh, man. And that if his family, especially his daughter, reached out to me or any of my loved ones again, I would go to the police over the harassment I was facing. I do wish I could afford more, but I'm barely breaking even right now. I never got to finish college, but I have the student loans of someone who did. I had to get a car loan because Robert totaled two of our cars within 1 year of each other due to his quote unquote seizures that were not seizures. I worked myself to the bone for 9 years while Robert promised me financial security when he was done with his program. It took the man 9 years to not graduate with his degree, but he also said he was unable to work and had to focus on school. His family will never see how hard I worked, how I made sure we always had health insurance, how I fought for Robert to see specialist after specialist, and how I managed to work full time while still maintaining a 4.0 GPA until his death. Yeah. I do wish them healing because they are holding anger and guilt that I will never understand, but I also wish they realized that I didn't deserve their vitriol. If they actually knew Robert, they would have known me. I love my husband, but I completely understand why he was not close with his family at all, why he chose not to visit them, and why he would get annoyed when I said he should make the trip up to see them whenever they were in New York City. This is somehow both condensed and way too much. Word vomit. I'm so sorry for the rant. I promise I'm in therapy for all of these things.
I'm glad you are because this is all of the things. You have experienced all of the things, and I don't know how one person can hold any of that without like
Being a popsicle. We grant you popsicle status.
yeah,
100%. So,
deserved.
wow.
That's
A
well,
lot.
I really hope they find comfort in that stuffed animal from quote
2007.
yeah, from Robert's quote childhood, aka the X.
That's
Oh
crazy.
gosh. All right, guys, this is the last one. The Christmas before our June wedding, my mother in law asked for details about our wedding plans for the first time. When we explained that my late husband's childhood best friend had gotten ordained to marry us, her question was automatically, along with a priest? Because she's Catholic. My late husband had not been practicing for quite a while, so we told her no, and then she proceeded to ask if our wedding would be legally binding. Okay. Fast forward
We're
to
going to
my
get a non-legally binding one.
yeah, just a for funsies one.
For funsies
Yeah.
one.
Fast forward to my bridal shower. She arrived late to my shower, had to be prompted by multiple people to join me for a photo when she started pulling at my hair and holding it over my head, quote, as a joke. Though in the live photo, I'm heard saying, no, please stop. She left immediately after with no goodbye. The wedding day arrives, and in our video, as I'm walking towards the aisle and my husband is looking at me, she walks up to my husband to give him a hug and says something to him as I'm walking up the aisle.
She blocked him.
Totally.
Wife walking down the aisle.
Her sister, who I had met once before, was wearing white in the
No,
front row.
this is like sitcom.
This is the Thursday after my husband died in October. She arrived with my brother-in-law and his wife to our house for the first time. We had invited her many times since we bought our house last March, and she always brushed us off. The first words she said to me were, "What happened?" After which she went on a rant regarding how I had taken her son away from the church,
Oh
which,
gosh.
by the way, happened before I met him, and he was her life. My brother-in-law was sitting right there. And that if my husband was not the love of my life, I plan to marry and I plan to someday again marry. His body should be buried with his dad and eventually her.
Oh my goodness.
She
Because she can
essentially,
predict that. And
yeah,
also, what in the world?
There's
Oh
a
gosh.
version of this that I have been through, but I can't talk about it. Anyway, she essentially went on to blame me for his suicide. She dismissed the compromise I had suggested for memorial plans and kept going on about a Catholic funeral mass and that no one would come to a quote party. I I totally would. I still say I want a bounce house. I was planning a memorial service. After cutting me off anytime I tried to speak, I calmly told her she could stop interrupting me or get out of my house. She left. I tried to play She tried to play nice the next day for 5 minutes, and I have not seen nor heard from her since. She reposted his obituary that I wrote in a local service in her state and changed aspects of it, like removing our cat's name. What? Like, that's pretty petty. She didn't come to his memorial and planned and held a funeral mass without telling me 2 days after his service.
Oh my heavens.
She's a true winner. In all of the struggle in navigating life without my husband the last few months, I am glad that she is no longer a concern. Thank you for both creating such a wonderful place for us all to share and feel heard and seen. I appreciate it more than you know. As a side note, I feel so strange being referred to as a widow as a 28-year-old with no children. My friend started calling me a killer spider and it stuck.
That's cute.
Woo!
Oh, we have one more, Mel.
Oh, just kidding. This is actually the last one.
Yes. Okay. So these are things that were said to the widow by, I believe, the family. Whilst you think you are important, you are not. You might be his wife, but I have been his sister a lot longer than you have been around. That was from my lovely sister-in-law after I was with him for 24 years. We have had a meeting and decided we will consider you as family now since he died. From my husband's brother and sister. Gee, thanks. 24 years. Glad you acknowledged that. I want to see his will, his death certificate, and the autopsy report, as I want to know when I am getting my share of his inheritance.
Wow.
From the sister-in-law 3 months after he died, with whom he did not have a close relationship. What? Look. I am paying for lunch for everyone. Well, taking it out of mom's account, but not for you, points at me. You are not real family, from the sister-in-law.
There's a theme for these, all of this whole episode of not being real family, blood family. Do they realize, like, say you have like some in-laws, like a sister-in-law or something, do they realize their parents are not blood related? Or maybe they are, and that's the problem.
I think that's the problem.
Mic
you guys, thank you for sharing your crazy in-law stories. It's going to do one of three things. One, it's going to make you feel like maybe it's not so bad what you've been through. Or two, it's going to make you appreciate the situation that you have with your in-laws. Or three, it's going to make you go, yep, I feel seen now. So,
validation.
Yeah, hopefully you guys feel better by listening to this episode for one of those three reasons. Not sure. Not sure.
Yeah, if you guys want to talk about more of these, post in the Widow Wives Club and let's keep the conversation going, because these are the conversations that we really can only have amongst each other, you know, in a private group, semi-private, because people could take screenshots. So always be careful. But yes, guys, thank you for your submissions. We're sorry that you have a shit show going on. We see you. Thank you for everything that you do for us as our widow friends. So we're just, I don't even know anymore. I don't know. I need a nap after that.
That was crazy. If you guys want to be able to hear more episodes like this and keep the podcast going, you should check out our Patreon. It's patreon.com/WWDN.
If you like the podcast and you can't join the Patreon and would like to do a one-time donation, please consider buying us a taco or 2 or 27 at buymeacoffee.com/widowwedonoww.
Until we get to talk to you again for another round of crazy stories. I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
And we're just two young widows bringing you the deep, dark, secret in-law stories. And we're all just trying to figure out, widow,
we
do
now. This is my favorite thing to discuss with you.
Tell me, what is it?
One of my favorite things. I do enjoy tacos and cheese and dogs. This is about how you cannot pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars for a phone plan, especially when you're a widow, your person is dead, you might have kids, you might need another option, and you just want your phone to work, you want unlimited texting and service, and you want it to be like $25 a month.
It blows my mind that they have plans that start at $15 a month. That is so cheap. And the cool thing is it uses other 5G networks. And so you don't have to pay extra for that. And you still get great service.
Yep. Anita and I have traveled all over and I have used my phone. So I highly recommend it. And my mom's even on it. When my dad died, we put his phone down to the cheapest plan, which is $15 a month. And I think my mom's on the $20 a month plan, and it's so worth it. It's so much cheaper than what we were all paying before. So I highly recommend it if you're on a budget or not. Who cares? Ryan Reynolds is in charge of the company, and they send you free stickers with Ryan Reynolds temporary tattoos. It's kind of the best. So if somebody wants to sign up, what can they do, Anita?
Go to trymintmobile.com/WWDN. Seriously, you guys, such a great idea. Save yourself some money.
And if you're worried about losing data or having any changes with your phone, not going to happen. They walk you through it. Everything's fine. It's the easiest process of all time. Again, that's
trymintmobile.com/WWDN.